This tiny chip powers everything. But do you really know what's inside? Let's decode your CPU, the hidden hero behind performance. But let's clear a few key pieces inside your CPU once and for all. Cores, hyperthreading, cache.
They say my computer has 8 cores, but what does that even mean? What are cores, really?
When you say your CPU has 8 cores, you can imagine it as having 8 brains. Each core is like a mini processor inside your main processor. Think of it this way. Core 1 could be playing your YouTube video, Core 2 is keeping your browser tabs active, Core 3 might be running your antivirus scan, and so on. All of them are working in parallel. Like 8 people in a kitchen, each handling a different dish at the same time. That's why more cores often mean smoother multitasking. Your computer doesn't freeze just because one task is busy. Hyperthreading. They are the hands. Imagine your CPU core as a brain with 2 hands. Normally, one hand might be holding a book, focusing on reading one task. But sometimes it has to pause. Maybe it's waiting for new pages or data to arrive. With hyperthreading, that same brain gets a second hand. So while one hand waits, the other can sip a coffee or start another small task. You're still one brain, not two, but you are using your time smarter. That's exactly what hyperthreading does inside your CPU. One core, 2 threads, but both staying productive instead of waiting around.
Hold on, cores are brains, threads are hands. I got that, but what about cache? Everyone says it's super fast. What is it really?
Each processor comes with its own lightning fast cache memory. Yes, lightning fast. Much faster than RAM. And that's exactly why it's so expensive. Let's decode the CPU topology. This is our machine. It has 31 GB of main memory or RAM. This memory sits outside the CPU and stores everything your system is working on. It's large but slower compared to what's inside the processor. Inside the system lives our CPU, our package. This is the physical silicon chip plugged into the motherboard socket. Everything that happens inside, the cores, caches, and threads, sits right here. The package has an L3 cache, 8 MB in this case. Think of it as a shared memory pool where all cores can quickly look for data before reaching out to the slower RAM. It helps the cores talk and share results faster. Now, each core has its own private cache layers. L2 cache, about 256 KB, is like the personal workspace of the core. Then comes L1 cache, the fastest one. It's split into 2 parts, L1D for data and L1I for instructions. Each 32 KB, sitting closest to the execution units, lightning fast and extremely expensive per byte. Each core can handle 2 threads, PU0 and PU4. Thanks to hyperthreading. It's like giving one core 2 hands. While one waits for data, the other one can keep working. So from top to bottom, the machine holds memory. The package holds the processor holds multiple cores, each core has its own L1 and L2 cache, and all share a common L3. To see cores, threads, and caches in action, run a command lscpu.
Okay, but where are the NUMA nodes you promised in the thumbnail?
Oh, for NUMA nodes? Let's time travel to the past. Back then, there was just one CPU talking to one memory. That green path you see, that's the data highway, what we call the bus. All the information flowed through this single lane. Life was simple. No congestion, no confusion. Now, let's jump to the modern era. As systems evolved, we added more CPUs, but they all shared the same memory path. Soon, that single bus became a traffic jam. Each CPU waiting for its turn to talk to memory. The result? Delays, congestion, and performance bottlenecks. And this is where NUMA, non-uniform memory access changed the game. Instead of all CPUs fighting over a single memory bus, NUMA systems group memory into nodes and assign each node to a CPU socket, giving it its own local memory region. You still have one big physical RAM in the system, but now it's divided into multiple regions. Each CPU gets its own dedicated memory lane, its own highway to access the data faster. When a CPU accesses its own memory, it's called local memory access, fast and direct. But when it reaches for another CPU's memory, that becomes remote memory access. It's still possible, but slower due to distance and interconnect latency. By now, you can probably see why it's called non-uniform memory access, because not all memory access times are equal. That's NUMA, the architecture that keeps modern servers fast and efficient. Let's see how NUMA looks on a real system. When I run free -m, you can see I have around 15 GB of total RAM. Now let's check LS CPU. It shows 10 cores and 1 socket. But wait, my CPU count says 20. Why 20? That's because each core has 2 threads, thanks to hyperthreading. Remember the hands? So the system shows 20 local CPUs, even though there are only 10 physical cores. Now let's jump to the NUMA section. Since I have only one socket, I also have just one NUMA node. What does that mean? It means all memory access is local. There is no remote memory to reach. If I run NUMA CTL hardware, it shows one available node with all 20 CPUs listed under it. You can also see node 0 size as around 15 GB, which is basically my entire RAM. To go one step deeper, you can run NUMA stat. In my output, you will notice values under NUMA hit and NUMA local node, but nothing under NUMA miss or NUMA other node. That's because in my setup, there is no remote access. My CPU directly accesses its local RAM. On systems with multiple sockets and CPUs, you will see multiple NUMA nodes. If you watched our last video on system calls, you know the pattern. How the tech works, why it exists, and where you will see it in action. Let's do the same for cache and NUMA. How? We just saw how cache and NUMA works. Why? Why does design exist? To achieve performance, scalability, and stability. Where? Where you will see it in action. Everywhere, wherever latency, performance, and speed matters. These concepts are extremely important. Whether you are preparing for top tech companies, a student building strong fundamentals, or a working professional sharpening your skills. So don't miss our last video, where we actually traveled from user space to kernel space using real system calls.